The first bullet tore through the night and split a man's chest wide open. He dropped without a word, his cigarette still glowing faintly between his fingers, smoke curling from his lips as though mocking the life that had just fled his body. For a single second, the others stood in shock, eyes wide, mouths open, laughter dead in their throats. Then the chaos began. Shouts filled the yard. Orders in Spanish clashed with curses in English. Boots pounded dry earth. Guns swung wildly toward shadows. The desert had been quiet only moments before, still, breathless, unassuming. Now it echoed with panic. But Evelyn Grant remained steady. From the dark mouth of her attic window, she watched through the cold steel eye of her scope. Her breathing was deliberate, her pulse unshaken. To her, this wasn't chaos. It was a battlefield, and battlefields were familiar ground. The second shot sang. A man staggered backward, his body twisting grotesquely before he crumpled to the dirt. The others scrambled, diving behind fences, trucks, even one another. They thought cover would protect them. They thought hiding would make them safe. But Evelyn knew better. She had spent decades dismantling men who believed the same lie. Her fingers squeezed. Another body collapsed. Squeezed again. Another life extinguished. Each shot was final. Each shot was truth. 15 had come. Already half of them were sprawled in the dust, their blood soaking into land that was never theirs to claim. The survivors screamed into the night, their confidence shattered. They had come laughing, sure of themselves, sure of their numbers, sure of the weakness of the woman who lived alone on this patch of nowhere. They had pictured her cowering in a corner, begging for mercy, surrendering her land and her dignity. Instead, they were running, ducking, gasping for breath as their men fell one by one under her hand. The rifle thundered again, smoke swirling from its barrel, and Evelyn whispered to herself, almost a prayer, almost a curse. One shot at a time. But as the bodies dropped, memories rose. The stench of gunpowder carried her back to deserts halfway across the world. The crack of her rifle echoed jungles thick with humidity, where mosquitoes buzzed louder than gunfire until the first bullet found its mark. She remembered men who thought they were invisible until she reminded them otherwise. She remembered the whispers in the barracks, the stories that circled even among soldiers hardened by war. They had called her the Widowmaker, a name she had carried like both a weapon and a burden. And now here she was, 71 years old, her hair silver, her hands wrinkled, but still steady, still exact, still merciless when she needed to be. The cartel tried to flank her. 2 slipped into her barn, shadows moving low. Evelyn saw them through her scope, but let them come. A sniper's patience was more dangerous than her bullets. She lowered her rifle, leaving it in the attic, and moved silently down the stairs. Her revolver waited in the drawer beside her bed, heavy and faithful. She gripped it tight, the weight of it pulling her backward into a younger self. She felt the heat of memory in her palm, the years collapsing into this moment. The stairs creaked. She waited. The first man appeared in the attic doorway. She didn't give him the grace of recognition. 2 shots bloomed crimson across his chest before his mind even registered that death was in the room. The second was faster, blade in hand, fury in his eyes. He lunged, his knife sliced across her arm, pain burning deep, blood warm against her skin. Evelyn didn't flinch. Pain was an old companion. She drove her elbow into his jaw, twisted his wrist until bones snapped like dry wood, and pressed the revolver beneath his chin. The explosion inside his skull painted the walls. His body slumped at her feet, another ghost to join the thousands she had already buried. She stood still in the silence that followed, the smell of blood thick in the air, her arm bleeding freely. She wrapped it quickly with an old cloth and went back to work. Outside, the cartel grew desperate. Their leader was gone. Half their men were dead. Their bravado had rotted into rage. They torched her barn, flames rising high, sparks raining across the night sky. Smoke poured thick and black, smothering the stars. They thought fire would flush her out, thought it would leave her exposed. But Evelyn had lived through fire before. She stepped onto her porch, silhouetted against the burning barn. Her arm bled, but her rifle was steady. Her revolver was holstered at her hip. Her eyes burned brighter than the flames. The cartel shouted at her, threats, promises of pain. They screamed that they would break her, that they would make her regret standing against them. Evelyn's voice carried across the yard, low and unshaken. "You boys should have stayed in the desert." They charged. Gunfire ripped the night apart. Bullets chewed through wood, shattered glass, screamed past her ears. But Evelyn didn't cower. She moved like water, flowing, bending, striking. Each bullet she fired was deliberate. Each man who fell reminded her of why she had survived this long. When the smoke cleared, only one remained. He was young, trembling, eyes wide with the realization that his death had been written the moment he stepped off the truck. He dropped his gun, fell to his knees, and begged in Spanish. His words stumbled, cracked, desperate. Evelyn walked toward him, boots crunching on dry dirt, her rifle still warm in her hands. She raised it, her finger brushing the trigger. The boy closed his eyes, tears streaking his face. She stopped, lowered the rifle. "Run," she said. He did. Stumbling, scrambling, vanishing into the endless dark. She let him go. Because sometimes a survivor tells the story better than the dead ever could. When the barn collapsed in on itself, the fire began to die. The yard was littered with silence and corpses. The desert had swallowed the chaos whole, leaving only the crackle of dying flames and the slow rise of dawn. Evelyn stood in the ruins of the night. Her house was scarred, her body bleeding, her soul heavy, but she was unbroken. The horizon glowed orange, the first light of morning cutting through smoke. She watched the sun rise, and for the first time in years, she felt it rise inside her too. Legends don't fade, they wait, and when the time comes, they rise again. Evelyn's story is not just one of violence, it is a lesson carved into the silence of the desert. Never mistake stillness for weakness, never confuse age with frailty, and never underestimate the ones who have walked through fire, buried ghosts, and returned with steel in their souls. The cartel had thought they were wolves. They had thought themselves hunters, but hunters often forget. The lioness hunts alone. And Evelyn Grant was a lioness who had never forgotten how to kill.